Hello, thank you for tuning into this session of Masterclass brought to you by Astreva. We've got a phenomenal conversation today that we want to invite you in on and hope to engage and have really great conversation, but also practical tips to help you in your workplace become a better HR and recruiting professional. This week, we are talking about employer branding in the digital age. And I have some phenomenal experts who will help us bring to light some of the conversation questions you may be having in your organization and that you want advice on. So, I'm joined by Celinda Appleby, who is the Global Director of Talent Attraction at Visa. And I'm also joined by Diogo Videira, who is a talent acquisition expert and employer brand strategist, product manager, and public speaker, currently at Exxonmobil. Celinda, Diogo, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
So thrilled to have you here. And could you all share where in the world you are speaking with us today?
Sure, I'll go first. I am currently in Portland, Oregon, by way of Maryland. I heard you say earlier you're from Maryland, so I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. I that's it.
Okay, Diogo, what about you?
Yes, I'm sitting in Prague, Czech Republic, so right in the center of Europe.
Awesome, awesome. And I want to get the conversation started with a fun fact. Is there any fun fact you'd care to share about who you are, the work that you do, maybe a hobby that we wouldn't quite know about you if we were just browsing your LinkedIn profile?
You want to go first, or should
Celinda,
I?
please
Sure,
first.
I'll go first. The first one that comes to mind is I'm a mother of identical twin boys. They both play baseball, and I am a self-proclaimed baseball mom. Hashtag baseball mom. Even though they hate it, that I am a big fan of theirs.
Awesome, awesome.
Well, I,
Diogo, what about you?
I don't have twins, but I have a fun fact about my name, maybe. So my surname is Videira, and that means vineyard. That basically is also connected to one of my big passions, and that is wine.
A big passion too.
Yes.
Baseball, wine. I feel like we're in great company here. I enjoy those things as well. But our audience has come for a thrilling conversation on a topic that you two know very well, and that is employer branding in the digital age. And I'd love to jump into the first question. Diogo, I'll start with you. How do companies navigate the balance between encouraging personal brand development among employees while ensuring alignment with the broader employer brand? Diogo?
Yeah, so I think we start with an interesting question. I think that balance it's not easy to achieve, but it needs to be something kind of natural, right? So your employees are basically your advocates. Um, so let's say that any exposure that they have in a positive way will also influence your branding positively. I wouldn't be too worried as a company actually to give space to the people to speak, to basically tell about how they feel, tell about their experience, because we know that this is one of the trends already for some time. It's to actually let the people talk about what they are feeling, what they are experiencing, how they live the culture in the company. So I'd say that the balance should come kind of naturally, uh, in a way.
Okay.
I love
Celinda,
that.
what are your thoughts?
So this is a topic that's super near and dear to my heart. I will say for the past four organizations I worked at, so HP, Oracle, Nike, and currently at Visa, one of my favorite things to do every year is to train folks on how to be talent magnets. And when I say folks, I really mean employees. I truly believe that yes, it has to be natural. I can't spoon feed them content. However, you save your company time and so much money on advertising if you empower employees that are already happy in your workplace, right? Of course, this is all by survey data. So if you've done your employee survey data and high percentages of employees are happy, capitalize on that happiness. And it's, it doesn't have to be things like saying I love my company. You don't want that. But what I do every year is I do a refresh training of how to leverage LinkedIn. Many years ago, LinkedIn used to do this. It was called Rock My Profile. So I do something very similar. And the reason that is about 86% of job seekers are going to LinkedIn to look up the hiring manager and the recruiter anyways. So why would we not take that banner? Why would we not take that little summary space and talk about why it's a great place to work at Visa or Nike or Exxonmobil? It is such a free way to activate your employer brand.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
If I can just add there, sorry, Joy, it's true. I think that's spot on. I think that I approach it more on the theoretical way, and you went straight to the practice, so that's great. And I do agree with what you just said. And if I look kind of what we have or what I see around, let's say ambassadors program is something very common, right? And it's true. You need to kind of feed them some basics, not just on LinkedIn, but also kind of do's and don'ts, because you don't want to mess up with public and governmental affairs. You want to keep the line there, or with the communications part. But yeah, I think that it's very important to really look into some practical tips and give them that. But at the same time, empower them to be free on what they choose to share.
100%. I think and you all know this, in the era of the big tech, right? The top 10 technology companies in the world all were laying off humans in, late November, early January. And what we saw come forward, which is one of my favorite posts on LinkedIn that went viral, was the McDonald's CTO, where he was like, I'm not laying off. Come work for me, and then gave a paragraph as to why his tech needed Meta's technology or technologists. So it's simple things like that, where I don't know if he has a PR person, he probably does, but the value of increase of his brand, the employer brand extended just by humanizing the fact that he's still hiring and will not be laying humans off in this time.
Yeah, humanization is probably the key also for the whole employer branding thing. I think that in the era of automation and digitalization and AI, actually humanization is what it gains the hearts. So
Okay, well, so now from what you all said, and we're starting out the gate with a great conversation already, it sounds like you all are leaning more towards the opinion of giving employees room and space to develop their personal brand within the context of the employer. But what about those in our community who may be in, whether it be industries or positions, where they have to take more of a position where you're maintaining employer brand consistency, and it's more about the we than the me. Any thoughts or advice or guidance?
Yeah, so I've worked for some very iconic brands that definitely have pretty stringent brand guidelines when it comes to the we versus the personal branding components of it. And some of the things that have helped, obviously if you have budget, getting a tool like a Paperfly or a Canva or something along the lines that'll help people become content creators within the confines of your brand is helpful. I personally have not had the luxury of that budget. So we utilize PowerPoints and create templates in a SharePoint for people to use. And it does help. I mean, my target audience, or the people that I create for, are recruiters. I see them as my frontline workers. We used to say there was a war on talent, and those were your frontline soldiers, right? Those are the people that I need to make sure. Of course, hiring managers are an extension of them, but anything I can do to make their lives easier, so that way they're focused on closing candidates, but also being great marketers on the front end. And we've been able to do that at Visa by providing PowerPoint templates. Hope to move into a more digital enabled way of thinking in the future.
Okay. Diogo, any
yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. If you can go with some tools, I think that this will for sure uh, facilitate your life. I would say that you can also use some collaboration tools like basic, like OneNote. I think that everyone uses. I think that you can also use Contentino, that is more for publishing online. You have ZoomSphere, that is also an interesting tool for sharing content, and you can do it internally but also externally, already projecting for your social media channels. But if you cannot go for the tools, I think that you probably need to think a little bit global. So how can actually I fit the global strategy into the local environment? Because sometimes your company is so big, and with my company I see that as well, that you are hiring a completely different profile, and you want to profile yourself also as completely differently in different locations, right? The way Exxonmobil is seen in US, it's completely different than the way it's seen in Europe, and it's also completely different the type of profiles you hire there. So I think that it's not easy, right? But you need to really try to find the local spark, what is slightly different to be able to attract the local talents without going against what is your global guideline.
All right,
I love
great, great,
that.
great. So, Diogo, I feel like you're reading my mind because we're transitioning into the next question that's all about helping our brands stand out. And so, without further ado, and Diogo, I'll let you go first, maybe to double down on your thoughts there. But how can organizations differentiate their employer branding in a digital landscape that's saturated with similar messaging,
Yeah.
visuals, and promises? And what innovative strategies have you seen, or can you recommend? Diogo,
Yeah.
and then
So I feel that this is not kind of something really new, but I would say that the most important thing is really kind of authenticity. And I know it's a bit of an empty word. What is authenticity? But that's basically the important is to show actually what your company does, what your company stands for. That is really important. Then you have, of course, transparency as something very important. So try to be transparent about what you do, how you do things, even inside of the recruitment process. Try to explain how the steps are taken. Try to basically show as much as possible. Then I think that we already touched upon that, but creating a network of ambassadors or employer advocacy that will always help you. The experience will always be a bit more live, let's say. And then there's another one that I heard a couple of years ago, but I didn't see so much into practice, and I would like to see it more and more. And instead of having a EVP, we should go actually in direction of a IVP. So the individual value proposition instead of the employer value proposition. And I think that that can be a good differentiator, right? So if you know your audience, if you do your research, if you gather feedback and act upon them, you can actually personalize quite a big deal, I'd say. I think that in terms of then you have maybe gamification, so leveraging on the technology or on the interaction. You can have also some virtual reality visits around the offices. I think that that can be interesting. And gamification can be also for even applying for the job. A couple of years ago, Google was launching some challenge for the programmers that they would need to solve some kind of puzzle in order to apply. And I think that that idea is great.
I love that.
thanks, Celinda.
Yeah, so honestly, you hit it right on the nail where there's not a lot of this stuff that is so new to the world, right? I tend to lean a lot on the toolbox that I used 10 years ago and just sort of amplify it, but it's all grounded on intelligence data. And I love that you brought up globalization because it is true, right? Right now, Visa's opening up a tech hub in Poland, and the things that we have doing in Atlanta or Foster City just don't match because that target audience is about 83% male, and 26% of the women we want are already gainfully employed in engineering. So we have to be really creative. And so we would have known none of that without dealing with the insights and the talent intelligence and really diving into the labor market and building personas that are grounded on those insights, but also the where you can be really sexy or really innovative is looking at the product that you deliver or the service that you deliver, right? And thinking about the people behind that product. And what I mean by that is we all go to the doctors, sometimes 2 to 3 doctors, but no doctor's office is the same, right? Every single doctor's office has something a little different. Maybe, the iPad at check-in or the magazines on the table. And so, but they're still delivering the same service. So how can you as an organization differentiate the same thing we all do? When I was at HP, there was numerous printer companies on the marketplace, but what did HP do different to sell that printer? And it boiled down to the people that were building the product, the people that were selling the product. And honestly, we started with the people, we started with the employees. That is your true differentiator, right? What is going to make people stay at Visa? Usually the people we hire at Visa are very different than the people that are hired at Exxonmobil and so forth, right? We don't really cross pollinate there. And so if you focus on the why, people tend to sort of gravitate. And what I love about that is that you're going to have people that opt out, right? And opting out is great, right? Because you don't want to have everybody come because so everybody's culture isn't right for everyone. And so making sure that your employer brand messaging is local, is personalized, is targeted, all also allows people to opt out. And I don't think we talk about that enough in the industry.
That's true. I think it's very important. The opt-out option, let's say, is very important. And connecting to what you were just mentioning, one thing that immediately pops to my mind, and I forgot to refer to, it's the purpose. Is the purpose behind your job is actually how you translate what you do on the day to day in something that can or should be meaningful for the society. And I think that that is another selling point that the companies need to kind of try to explore a bit more. So what is the purpose behind the job that you do? If you get yourself a sense of purpose, you probably will even be more productive, right? So that's the idea.
True.
All right. Great conversation, great thoughts. Authenticity leads the day, and it will help you stand out in a digital room of noise and replication. All right. Next question in our masterclass. And Celinda, please, if you could do the honors of leading with this one. Uh, with the rise of remote work and digital first experiences, how do you envision the evolution of employer branding, considering there's less physical workplace influence and more reliance on digital perceptions?
I think
Celinda, what
we've,
do you think?
yeah, I think we're at a precipice where I'm grateful for, where we're moving away from the ping pong tables, the pool tables, and the kegerator in the office, right? I know some companies still thrive in that environment, but employees are seeking something more meaningful in this era. Coming out of the pandemic and in the isolation period, people are seeing meaningful connection, back to purpose, back to authenticity. And I think that building digital first conversations centered on better job descriptions, centered on, enhanced career sites, more storytelling. And I know we've been saying storytelling for 15 years, but what I mean by that is moving away from the words and the infographics and truly allowing your people in front of a camera to say why they're there. And not just that, but explain what you do, right? Because even though I've been doing this for 15 years across 4 companies, my job and culture and environment has been vastly different from company to company. But there's a reason why I stay at Visa for 5 years. And that would be meaningful for someone else that was looking to join us in that way. But I love where we're headed. I love that we're headed. Gen Z, I currently live with 2 Gen Zs. Wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, my kids don't want to read. If it's not on YouTube, they want nothing to do with it. And so as we think about multi-generations in the workplace, we have to think about how to attract each one of them, right? And we that means we still have to run email campaigns. That means we have to be video first. And then last but not least, we have to create still for social media because we have quite a large population that is still inhabiting the X's and the Twitters and the LinkedIn's of the world.
Diogo.
Yeah, you need to know your target group. Like that's the key there. I will take a slightly different take there. So first, I will basically question the remote work because I don't know how you see it in the US, but in Europe, I start to see a counter trend of actually the people coming back to the offices because the companies decide that they want them in the offices. Multiple reasons for that, advantages and disadvantages. I will not go there, right? It's not what is relevant here, but it's it's more and more. I see more and more around me people telling me, yeah, I need to go to the office 3 days, 4 days, or okay, maybe sometimes I can work from home, but the main place of work is still the office. I start to see that. So I think that there's still a mix. I think there's a big group of people, or I'll say almost most of the people, they really want flexibility and working for wherever they are, but the companies are holding back. They sort of gave it a bit of flexibility because they were forced to during COVID, but they are sort of stepping back into that. I don't know if you see that, and I know that sometimes is an elephant in the room to talk about this
Yeah.
because we all want to move forward and to really go into this more remote or more flexible way. But I think we are still not there. So, but let's forget about that and focus on this remote part. I think what is important is if there's less physical space, that means that you need to be more present on the digital one. So you need to produce more content. Probably you will need some help from AI there. I think. I think on the future, this is one of the things that AI will be able to help us with. I think that you need to personalize a lot regarding your target group. So if you are targeting IT people, the content needs to be completely different than if you are targeting engineers or traders or another type of job. So I think that that will gain more and more importance, the personalization. And I think that at the end of the day, you will need to reach a point where you have sort of constant content coming on, and that's why I think you need AI, but you still need the human touch there. So you still need the human component as well. So probably a combination of both is how I foresee it on this adaptation if we really go remote. I'm afraid we are still not there.
All right,
No,
Diego, you ventured down a path and then turned around, but I want to go down that path with you just a little bit
Okay, okay.
because internationally known HR strategist Josh Bersin, he's quoted as saying, "The physical workplace is not dead."
No,
We all know that we live in an environment where remote work is not an option for many jobs and many industries and many companies. So, for those members of our community who represent those employers, could you speak to maybe the value of physical place that it seems you have an inkling towards? So let's explore that a little bit, and then we'll jump to our next question.
sure. So I think that there you need probably to work a bit more with employee activation, right? So and engagement, and not just engagement, but involvement. You need to have your people, if they are all in the office, if they are all collaborating, or if they are all together, you need basically to put them in the tone that they are engaged, they are involved on what you want to show. And that's, I think, the path that we were going before COVID. I think that COVID kind of put a bit of stop there, and now we are restarting, but also more on the digital space. But if you are more focused on physical, I think that you need more office activities. Just to give you an example, we have the branding Fridays, right? Just something small, but on Fridays you carry on the different brands that represent us. You know, you take some pictures with your colleagues. We run some competitions around that. So this, and then you end up more in the digital space as well because it creates the spin-off. So I think that these are the kind of things that you need to think about if you are more physical. It's how can I engage my people to sort of go out of the collaboration just on the job but more on the social side. Humans are social, so
Diogo, I hope one of those prizes for your branding Fridays is a nice bottle of wine hand selected by
Unfortunately, no.
you, my friend.
Unfortunately, no. But still good stuff. Some branded stuff, you know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I
We
love
are
the
in
brand
HR,
stuff.
and I know there are rules, but let's
Yes.
keep things moving. Celinda, I want to ask you this one too. If you can start, and then Diogo, you finish. Um, Speaking of AI, do you believe that the ethics of AI-driven candidate assessments and their implications on the employer branding have been adequately addressed in the current digital landscape?
No, I think it's a conversation we're all having constantly. I just left LinkedIn Talent Connect, and the entire conference was dedicated to skill based hiring and AI or generative AI. And I think it's sort of like a palate cleanser for everyone, right? We all want to do it. There's very few companies that are doing it well. And I think, I don't know about your company, but we're very risk adverse, if you will. So there's a lot
Same.
of conversation, right? Legal and employment law and privacy. And so before we can put something out there, we're sort of safeguarding and looking at all of poking holes into every single strategy. But, anyways, to answer your question, I don't believe the current digital landscape is set up appropriately, thinking of like the New York City laws that are launching, or there's so much change that is happening from a legal perspective, that what ends up happening in most big matrix organizations is we sort of peel back and wait for the tide to rise before we act, because we're a little bit more hesitant, if you will.
Diogo, please.
Yeah. On the same tone, I think that is a evolving conversation. I don't think we are there in the evolving topic. Actually, I asked something similar a couple of weeks to ChatGPT if he thinks that AI is actually already with a frame, kind of in the ethics space, and he also said no. So if the AI has the sort of capacity to see that they are still not dead, I guess that's a sign. But
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of questions that we need to continue to speak about openly, and we need to continue to work on that in order to actually be able to really make sure that we are ethical in the space of AI. So I think that if we look at recruitment and employer branding, I think it's important to have some transparency and say this assessment it's AI based, or this content was partially or produced by AI. So at least you know when you are reading something or when you are being assessed, you know who will be the assessor. Then, of course, there's the question of the bias. Yeah. And of course, that AI also will have bias because it depends on the people that create the AI because they need to learn, right? So if the society has bias, AI therefore will have bias as well because this is how they learn, right? So I think that that's another question. And then I think that we need to use AI as a tool but not as a decision maker. So it cannot be AI deciding if your CV is a good match or not, or if this is exactly what you need or not. But it can be a tool that gives you some help to decide. But it cannot be them making the decision, or it cannot be AI decision based. It needs to be still human decision based. And I think that this will be a continuous topic, and we need to keep monitoring as well what the industry is doing. Because if we look at the early examples, and if we think about Amazon, it was a fiasco, right? And I think that it kind of scared a bit also the recruitment world how they can use AI for assessment, right? Because if they were basically discriminating or having the bias in their program, right? How can you avoid that for you?
Very true.
Okay. All right. Well, uh, Celinda, you are our resident baseball expert here, and we haven't had 9 questions, but consider this final question
Okay.
the bottom of the ninth. Okay, so this is the last question of the day. And for those of you, if you're in our community and you're enjoying this conversation, definitely make sure to look at our growing catalog of other courses with wonderful experts such as Celinda and Diogo. But Celinda, this fifth question that I want to ask you is, given the ephemeral nature of digital trends, is a constant adaptation and reinvention of employer branding strategies sustainable or even necessary?
Yes, I think we need to adapt all the time. I fear that oftentimes most large matrix organization look at recruitment marketing or employer branding or talent attraction and lump us all together like this incestuous little family and create a one size fits all, right? And the reality is with, chat gpt, I use that to make sure I'm enhancing my job descriptions, to make sure my LinkedIn posts are resonating. And so we have to stay one step ahead, thinking of all of the risk adversity, because I want my legal partners to still love me after this conversation, but also be honest that jobs evolve. So the engineers of 10 years ago are different than the engineers of today, right? And with that comes new personas, new ways of personalizing. And, this is what I love what I do. I think that even though I've been doing the same job at Visa for 5 years, every year it's a new way of thinking or a new tool we launch or so forth. And that comes with being, adapting and reinventing yourself, and the strategies that you bring to the table.
Diego.
Yeah, I really think that agility is really the buzzword there. But I think that is also important to think about what is behind the employer branding and why we are doing it. And that's focus on the case for action. So, what are you trying to fix or what are you trying to achieve with your employer branding campaign, with your recruitment campaign, with having actually your people speaking about you, about what they experience? So, I think that the case for action is always important. And in different organizations, the case for action will be different. So you also need to adapt about that, because if you don't, and if you try one solution that fits all, probably will not fit you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality. Then I think you need to look, and I think that more and more the companies are doing that, into data and into a cost benefit analysis. It's cheaper for me to invest in a big employer branding campaign that will bring me all these results, or it's cheaper for me actually to focus on target job ads or even an agency, right? A headhunter. So I think it's important to make this exercise also to understand what is the path to take.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes me to what is also very important, that is how you measure your success on the employer branding, right? And how you make sure that you are hitting what you need to hit. So I think that it's still necessary and will continue to be necessary to invest on the employer branding. Also, it can actually be good to attract, let's say, on the down cycle. So when everyone is not hiring, if you are hiring and if you are putting content there, it's great for the organization, right? Because then you can capitalize that when the war for the talent is back. So it's always important to look into down cycles, up cycles. What is your budget? What is your case for action? How you measure success? How you measure your results? I think that's it.
And Celinda, I just wanted to go back to you, and you mentioned about always being adaptive and agile and staying on top of trends. For the benefit of our community, where are some places that we could look and go to learn the new trends, stay on top of them, and bring your thought process to our organizations?
Yeah, so I post quite a bit on LinkedIn. So you're more than welcome, the only Celinda Appleby on LinkedIn, to follow me there. I do read a lot. So I'm constantly picking up, new podcasts or new books to read, new white papers, and I do share those out with my little highlights on why I think it's important. But for me, most of my learning comes. I mean, I wrote a whole bunch of notes while Diogo was talking, because these conversations I grow by talking to my peers. Because you don't, no matter what you read, knowing what a practitioner is doing in their day to day, to me, is more exciting because I know it worked for him. And so those are things that I would recommend.
Excellent. Diogo, you have any thoughts on tools, tips, resources to stay ahead of the curve with employment brand in this digital age?
So I'll say, Celinda was mentioning, just talk to people. That's very important, and just pay attention to your surroundings. And when I say that, it's not just your phone, because I think a lot of times we are very concentrated on your phone or on our laptop. That's normal. It's kind of part of our job, but you really just pay attention when you are in the bus or in the metro, or just walking in the shopping center. I get a lot of inspiration on actually product marketing campaigns. So I see what they are trying to do, how they are selling the idea, how they are selling the experience, right? And I try to transport that in a way to the employer branding, because it's selling as well, right? It's just a
I love
different
that.
product, and that's why I really consider that employer branding is actually more part of marketing than talent acquisition for me. And this is a personal opinion, of course, but this is this is what I would say. Just pay attention on what is going around. Then, of course, if you go to LinkedIn, if you go to Twitter, if you go to the social media channels. uh, Recently, I'm not a user of TikTok, for example, but I already saw many things in TikTok that inspire me, and that gave me some ideas that I could use perhaps in some future campaigns, or that I use sometimes with the ambassadors. So I think that just pay attention of what is available, because we really live in a world of infinite possibilities. So
It's true.
it's about then what it fits better, you know.
All right.
And I was going to add one thing that I find very easy: sign up for all the talent communities. So
Yes.
I sign up for talent communities as a job seeker. I love seeing all of your content and seeing what you're posting and bragging about the work you're doing. Some of my favorites right now are Zillow. Um, MasterCard's doing great stuff. And it's really just because you're inspired, like what you said. But I love the idea of switching out of TA and looking at product. But I do agree, if you have time, sign up for talent communities, get that content in your inbox, and be inspired by what your peers are doing on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent. Excellent. This reminds me of the Pablo Picasso quote where he says, good artists copy, great artists steal. And
Mhm.
not that we're doing anything malicious, but we're looking to be inspired and bring what's working for others into our own organizations. Well, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I don't want it to end, but all good things come to an end. And so let's leave with some next steps of how can people reach you and learn more about your own career journey and things you're seeing in the space. So, Celinda, how can people contact you?
And I totally jumped the gun earlier. I misunderstood, but you can find me on LinkedIn. And I also tweet quite a bit. Is that what we call it now? But you can
It's
absolutely
still
find
tweeting,
me on
yes,
LinkedIn. I'm
until it becomes
there
an
all the time.
X or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
of the
It's
sort.
so weird, like that, to say. What are you gonna say? X all the time. Anyways.
And Diogo, what about you? How can people find you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn mainly. It's funny because I'm a guy that needs to be on top of all the trends, but I don't have that much social media. I try to, because I think that if I would have more channels, I would spend more time, and I think that we probably spend too much time on social media. I really feel that. So, but reach out on LinkedIn. I'm always up to a good conversation. I learn a lot with the people. Actually, that's how I learn most of the things. So I'm always up to learn something more.
All right. All right. Well, this has been a great conversation discussing employer branding in the digital age. This is brought to you by Astreva, another one of our awesome master classes. I've been Joey Price, your host for this session. And again, look at our growing catalog of content and be sure to find episodes on YouTube, LinkedIn, and other places because they are there. Celinda, Diogo, thank you so much for this powerful conversation. I know it's going to change the
Thank
game
you.
for employers all across the country, all across the globe, and we'd love to have you back.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye bye.